Hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Seth, and we're gonna make a tier list on Valorant characters. Let's get started. So before I want to get started, I do want to establish something real quick. The tier list is going to be based on 2.09's update. But anyways, why don't we just start off with the first character, ASTRA. I really want to put her up in like A tier to S tier because of what's been happening recently in the VCT. And if you guys don't know what the VCT, basically it's like a competitive version of Valorant for like professional teams. And I'm just gonna say it straight up. Astra is either A tier or S tier. She's not B tier, she's not C tier. She's straight up probably the best controller right now, aside from like Viper and Omen. Brim has not been getting as much love as he should be getting. I personally think that he needs a little bit more love, but I'm gonna put her in A tier, and here's why. The character alone, very well made idea, like a great idea for her utility. She has 5 smokes basically, all within the star limitations. She also has 5 pulls and like 5 concussions, and like she has a ultimate that's really great for getting on site and controlling site. The main issue with her though is you have to work in a team, and if you have a great team that is really well coordinated with your stars and your pulls, then by all means you're going to be absolutely dominating people. But there are some moments in time where it's not really going to be the best for you if you're by yourself, and people can jump out of your stars anyways, because it takes like a couple seconds for the stars to actually be set in stone before being used. I would say she's more good on defense than she is on offense because, well, let's face it, planting down stars take a little bit of time, and having pre-made stars is going to be way more beneficial for you than having stars that take like a couple seconds when you need them now. So yeah, I think Astra's just A tier. You know, speaking of like controllers, let's talk about Brim. Brim has not been getting that much love lately. I mean, there's like lineups and like his other utilities, sure. I mean, whatever, but the only thing really good for him right now is his smokes and his ultimate. His ability to increase the fire rate, I've realized over time, is not the most beneficial thing when you're literally just one-tapping people. There's no point of increasing your fire rate when you can just one-tap someone, and I think Brim needs a little bit more love when it comes to that. I would say, if anything, in general, as a controller, he's good for what he uses, but he doesn't have that many smokes. They don't regenerate unless the round ends. His Molotov is okay if you know lineups. I'm gonna put him in B tier. It's not because I would put him in C tier, but he's better off than like, well, who's the other control? I don't even, actually, you know what? Fuck it. He's gonna be C tier. I say he's C tier because his smokes are good and his ultimate is good. His molly's okay if you know lineups, and his stimulus check. Holy shit. Yeah, Brim's got a stimulus check, ladies and gentlemen. His stim beacon is not that good if you're just one-tapping people, which is the meta right now. People are starting to use the Guardian a little more. People are starting to use the Vandal a lot more. The Phantom's always been used no matter what because it's just a good all-around weapon, but at this point, I just think Brim is not as powerful as the other controllers. So, on to the next controller, OMEN. B tier. Insta B tier. I would even put him in A tier, but I mean, it's tough to say. OMEN is kind of that tough spot with the other controllers, and it's not because of him having his smokes kind of like take forever to get onto like the area that he puts it at. It's more so his ultimate is good for information, but it's usually canceled instantly. It's only really good for information, and information is key. Sure, I can agree with that, but there's only so much you can do until you actually get a visualization of like what's around you when you place your ult. Because when you teleport, it takes like a couple seconds before you actually get a full range of like where people are at, and even before then you can shoot his ultimate down before it's fully done. His main teleport, like one of his actual teleports for utility, is okay for the most part. It's really good for getting off angles, but there are some moments and times where you don't really need to get onto those off angles. Like, sure, you need to go to a different angle every time you kill someone, but everyone's gonna hear you teleport unless it's before the round. You know, unless you're like in defense and you're trying to get on top of like a double box or playing default, you know, whatever, right? It's understandable, but his teleport's not really that good unless you're trying to get out of a sticky situation. His smokes are good. I think his smokes are the best smokes, aside from Astra, of course. Like, if you're talking range, it goes from Astra to Omen, and then to Viper, and then Brim, right? Because Viper has that wall, Viper has smokes you can just toss around, and they stay there for a while, no one can destroy it. It's really good, but if we're talking about smokes, it's something about his smokes that take a little while. I mean, they're good, but they don't... It's just not as good as Astra's. If you're comparing Astra's smoke to Omen's smoke, it's not as good because she has 5 smokes instantly, and she can also cancel out her stars to fake smoke, which is very interesting. When you fake smoke someone with Astra, woo, whole different ball game. I'd say Omen is really good for his flash, like through the wall, his near sight, but it's just the fact that he's only really good so much. I wouldn't say he's a specialized character for like specific teams. I would say he's more so... I'd say he's not as good as Astra, just in my opinion. But if we're talking going against Astra or Viper, I think Omen is right there. Speaking of Viper, A tier, no doubt. I think with the new release, a Breeze, and I'm a little sad for her. I'm a little sad for her change from being from 50 health with her smokes and walls to 30 health. That is removed if you pass through her obstacles, but I understand because it's a little bit hard to get past through without, you know, thinking, okay, I'm gonna take 30 damage temporarily. I don't know what's behind the wall, you know, it's whatever. I think her change doesn't change the fact that she is still good, and her change it's just been well received. I think she's balanced for the most part. I mean, I understand like having both her smokes and her wall going across the map, especially on a big map like Ascent or Breeze, you know, those types of maps, or even Icebox. It's very difficult to work around, but at the same time, you have to understand that her pool for her Viper gas is limited, and if she uses both of her smokes and her wall, or just use her wall in general and tries to keep it up as long as possible, she has a counter to her, and it's just patience and time. She's a time waster. You have to get on her ass. I don't know what else to say about her. She's just good. I'd say let's move on to Sentinels, but I want to get the Sentinels last because there's only 3 of them. I kind of want to get into like Duelists because those are really where most of the, like, there's more Duelists than there are like Sentinels, and I want to get them out the way. We'll start off with Raze, S tier. No brainer here, right? Like, Raze is probably the best character aside from Jett in the Duelist category, and I'm saying it now. Their mobility on Breeze, I can see Raze be very beneficial for gaining information while moving at Mach speed, and also being able to use her utility to get the drop on someone, right? Oh, got some indigestion. Just ate some like steak and some food. Ooh, it was some good ass steak too. Her ultimate and her utility just describes people who want to make space on site or in an area that they're trying to get through. It's scary because when you hear her ultimate, everyone who is on the opposite team back the fuck up. Like, honestly, they just gone. They just start sprinting out of fucking nowhere because you hear an ultimate, or like you hear satchel charges going through. You're just like, nope. Hey man, you want that space? Go right the fuck ahead. I'm not dealing with you because you have grenades and you have fucking rocket launchers and you have all this other shit that does damage to me. I am good. I just hate Raze, but she's so good at making space for people, and I put her S tier because of that alone. Raze in general is just a good duelist. And speaking of other duelists, we have Jett, who is also S tier. Now, I don't really need to go into detail about her. She just kills. She has dashes, she has updrafts, and she has smokes, and then she has her ultimate. She can combo with like Sage and other characters in general to get up into a higher area to use her ultimate and to beam down people. Her ultimate has no repercussions. You can right click people. I mean, you can left click people, sure, but like most of the time Jett mains are usually dashing into your face, trying to get up in your face and right click you, and they do their job pretty well. You can't really do anything except for play Sage. All right, next character, Phoenix. Oh man, buddy, I don't know where you were at. I remember you were at S tier because the combo with smokes and you flashing out, I think the meta is still there for Phoenix, but I'm gonna put him at A tier compared to these other duelists. Sure, he's got flashes, but that's why you have the initiators, you got Skye, you got Breach, and you even have YORU now. YORU's actually a good flasher now. I would say that Phoenix is better than YORU, but at the same time, he's not as good as Raze or Jett. And I'm probably going to put REYNA in A tier as well, just for the sake of the idea of duelists and what they're meant to do. And especially with her change of only having 2 orbs. I mean, she's not that good, but she's really high skill cap if you know how to use her well. Same thing with Raze and Jett, they're high skill cap. Phoenix is really not that skill cap all too much. I mean, yeah, you can learn like Molly lineups, you can learn wall lineups. Honestly, he's not that good as he used to be, but he's really good for initiating fights on the site. The only reason why he's A tier is because his ultimate. All of his other utilities are okay. So yeah, I think Phoenix is just A tier. He's good, but he's just not as good, right? REYNA, I'd say B tier. REYNA's really not that good. She's a little difficult thing. She's a little difficult to put, you know, because she's really good at early game, but like in the middle of the match, she's really not that good. Her Devour, which gives her healing, is good, but it's on a time limit, so if people just back up and not deal with you and don't die from you, I mean, you're just gonna have to deal with it. But yeah, REYNA's there, and YORU's also there with her. Now, with the introduction of Breeze, the new map, like, I understand, like, YORU is good. Like, I understand completely. Like, his teleportation is really good. His flashes are good, too. The only issue is that his footsteps are not really the big... Like, his footsteps don't really matter, because if the enemy team knows you're going against a YORU, they're just gonna say, okay, just double check if they're footsteps, and if they are, then just be careful on the other site. His ultimate is really good for information. I will admit that. His ultimate is super, super good for information, but... his utility is all based on, I would say it's all based on how he uses his teleport. And YORU is just basically a body bag for you to use. Let's talk about Breach. A tier. I think with the introduction of Breeze, he kind of fell from grace a little bit. I mean, I would actually put him in S tier, but I mean, if you really think about his flashes, they're not predictable, which sucks. They come through the wall, so you don't know if you're going to get flashed or not from any wall in general. Actually, I'm going to put him at S tier. I'm going to put him at S tier. I'm going to put SKYE S tier as well. I think they need to remove the flashes. Like, I think SKYE should only get 2 flashes, or they should reduce down the amount of time that you are flashed when you flash someone. Let's face it, if you get flashed by a Breach or SKYE, it's over. You've lost. They can just W key. And I will say his tremor is really good for dealing with oppers. It's just creating space, trying to get on site, and trying to control site. His ultimate is really good for countering people, and also destroying other oppers. Like, he's the counter to oppers. He's the counter to Jett, and he's the counter to Raze players. Because if you get tremored or if you get ulted by Breach, your mobility is not going to be as good. SKYE, the reason why I put her S tier as well is because she can heal people, she can concuss people to not op, but it's not as good as like Breach's Tremor, which her dog can be destroyed. It can be destroyed, which sucks. I wish the dog had a little bit more health pool to it, so it's more viable to like push and to initiate with. But other than that, I think her flashes are super good, her healing is great, her ultimate's not really that good. It's really good for information, don't get me wrong, but it's not as good as like SOVA's dart or Cypher's ultimate. And speaking of SOVA, SOVA is going to be A tier. SOVA's the type of character where people will want to play him, but they don't know what they're doing. And a lot of the times, I've seen a lot of SOVAs not know lineups, like, at all. And especially at, like, the Diamond and Immortal players. Like, I've seen SOVAs, good SOVAs, but I've also seen very bad SOVAs, and 80% of the SOVA population are fucking bad. Now, I will admit, based off his utility, I'm gonna say his ultimate is super good. It's just super good for killing people at any range. His tracking dart is super good from his drone. His drone is super good for initiating fights to try to get on site and try to clear some space. His shock arrows are really good if you know how to use them. SOVA's a really high skill cap character. That's what I'm trying to say. And the general population is not gonna be as good as the people who are in Radiant or professional plays. So I put SOVA in A because he is such a high skill cap, because you have to use his arrows correctly for him to be viable. CYPHER, C tier. Not really that good anymore. His tripwires are easy to work around with. Honestly, a good CYPHER main will always have a trick up their sleeves for placing down CYPHER traps, right? Like, there are like unknown areas of like CYPHER traps in general. Hell, even Breeze has some good ones, but I think CYPHER in general is not that good anymore because his CYPHER traps can be removed. His smokes are not really that good other than just for a countermeasure, and his camera is the only thing that's really benefiting him. Having that information of where people are at, or like having a secret area you can put your camera up and being able to put that camera in higher places to see like where people are at. It's nice, but all of his equipment can be destroyed. So CYPHER is just not that good, man. It sucks. It really does. I wish Sentinels got more love, especially CYPHER, because I used to play the fuck out of CYPHER a lot, especially during the beta. He was so fun to play around with, but if it's going to continue on going like this, man, CYPHER's just not going to be that good, and he's going to be one of the OG characters that are just not going to be good, and it sucks. Sage is S tier right now. Sage is really good right now because her slows are very beneficial for movement players. That includes Raze, that includes Jett, that includes all other characters that are based on mobility. That ability to slow down the rush of other teams, so beneficial, man. So beneficial. You have no idea. Her wall is really good for most maps except for Breeze and Icebox. I mean, Icebox you can lock down cat or like a tube, but other than that, her walls are not going to be that beneficial except for like the entrances for like maps that are small. And most of the maps are small, and that's why I put her at S tier, is because most of the maps are small. If you get Icebox, if you get Breeze, you're just gonna have to deal with the fact that you're gonna have to put walls in certain areas. I know there's like certain walls on Breeze you can use that are broken, sure, and I totally agree that, you know, it's a little busted for Sage to be able to do that, but at the same time, she was around A to B tier before Breeze came out. But now she's S tier because everyone's starting to realize that her slow is good, she can heal people, she can heal herself, and she can also fucking res people. Last but not least, KILLJOY, I'd put her at A tier. I'd say she's A tier for the most part because she can control sight super well. My main issue is that people can just rotate around to a different site. I mean, if you get two Sentinels like Sage and KILLJOY together, they're a very unstoppable team, especially on a map like Ascent or on Split, because if you control sight, you control how the game plays. And I honestly think that KILLJOY is really good. She's good for information. She's good for making people vulnerable, and she's really good at making people take damage from swarm grenades. But those swarm grenades can be destroyed. I understand that. If you play swarm grenades where a lot of people have to deal with those swarm grenades, and if you change up where those swarm grenades are at, those are going to be the change of how the game is going to go. You change up your setup every single time, or maybe every so often, you're gonna be set for gold, man, and you're gonna be set for like platinum or even diamond. I think Killjoy is the simplest character you can play. You just wait for someone to cross over to your alarm bot and make them vulnerable, and then you just pop your swarm grenades and just waste time. That's it for the tier list, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. This school is gonna end soon. I really hope so, man. Fuck.